Your business deploys AI pilots everywhere. But are they going anywhere? Or are they stuck in silos, exhausting resources, unable to scale? Maybe you don't need hundreds of AI pilots, you need a holistic strategy. IBM has 65,000 consultants with Gen AI expertise who can help you design, integrate, and optimize AI solutions. So you're not just deploying AI, you're scaling it across your business. Learn more at ibm.com/consulting. IBM. Let's create.
Prime Big Deal Days is coming October 8th and 9th. Woohoo! Which can lead to involuntary deal squeals, like the infamous deal on a new massager squeal. Yeah! Save big on Prime Big Deal Days, October 8th and 9th.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, distribute it everywhere, and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcasts right from your phone or your computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&As and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel so supported in the creation and distribution of my show. Spotify for Podcasters hosts masterclasses, office hours, and more to help creators develop and fine-tune their skills. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey guys, what's up? We're back to a very, very special episode of 80/20. Today, like literally to the day, I published the first ever episode of 80/20, and today's our second birthday, which is crazy. So thank you so much for being here today. We're going to celebrate a little bit. We're going to share a lot. It might get sappy. It might be kind of inspiring. I'm going to share some like podcasting tips and tricks at the end. So if you've ever wanted to start a podcast, definitely stick around for that. As kind of a cool second birthday present, we just hit over 600,000 downloads. So thank you guys so much for that. My goal for the end of the year is to hit over 1 million, and I think we can do it. It might take a little bit of hard work, but I definitely think that we can do it. So if you guys like the show, be sure to share it on your Instagram stories, share it with a friend who might like it, leave a 5-star rate and review if you're listening on iTunes, and that just helps more people find and listen to the show. So thank you so much if you have done any of those things or if you will do any of those things. So in order to properly prepare for today's episode, I actually listened back to my very first episode of the podcast. First off, it wasn't as cringy as I thought it was going to be, so I'm happy about that. So if you go listen today, it's really not that bad. It's not something that I'm like embarrassed by. Like YouTube is a whole different thing. Like I think my first ever YouTube video was privated. Obviously I don't post on YouTube anymore, but my first ever YouTube videos were super cringy. I was also in high school and I was like a literal teenager, so like that's different. But anyway, I started 80/20 October of 2020 and I was 20. How convenient is that? And it's just kind of been a wild ride since then. Like I listened to where I was then, and some of the stuff that I said in that episode is still applicable to my life today. But there was something that really got me, and I don't remember the timestamp. I was just kind of listening when I was getting ready this morning. Lily from 2 years ago, she was somehow wise enough to know that all the shit that was happening to her, if you guys listen to that episode, you kind of get the whole story of like where my head was at back then. She did know that all of that was happening for a reason, and I think I said something along the lines of, someday I'll know what the reason is. Obviously, I can see now what the reasoning was, and how every single decision that I made led me to exactly where I am today. And I can like go back and pinpoint all these little decisions that I made that led me to be sitting here in my condo in Annapolis, working the job that I'm working, having the friends that I have, living the life that I'm living. And I'm honestly getting a little bit emotional because it just is crazy. And I know it's so cliche, but everything always works out for a reason. You just have to trust that, and I'm glad that I did at the time because it landed me exactly where I need to be right in this very moment. Obviously, when I started 80/20, I had no clue where the show would take me. I just wanted to have a podcast. I was tired of not having a podcast. I like to talk, and I think that this is fun for some reason, like sitting in my room. Kind of a little tangent here. I saw something on Instagram the other day, and it was a screenshot of someone's Hinge profile. And one of the prompts was, "You should not go out with me if," and then the person answered and said, "You don't want to hear me talk to myself alone in my room for an hour just for thousands of people to listen later on." And I actually reposted it on my story because I thought that was really funny. But it's so true and very funny. But at the time I didn't know that. I just thought maybe like a handful of people would listen and it would be kind of just a fun thing to do. And I know over the course of the past 2 years, I've taken a couple hiatuses, I've taken breaks, I've missed episodes, I've posted 2 episodes a week at one point in time, and I've been through so many different phases of life, but you guys have stuck it out with me, ridden the wave with me, and I am forever grateful for that. I might post some throwback pictures on Instagram because I was going through my camera roll the other day, and it's just crazy to see, like, even I looked so physically different. I know 2 years doesn't seem like a long time ago, but I feel like when you're in these transformative years of your early 20s, so much can change in a matter of months, if not years. And so looking back on these pictures, I feel like I've totally shape-shifted since then into, I guess, somewhat of a version of who I'm supposed to be, at least at this point in my life. It's just kind of crazy, like, go down memory lane and see what's changed and what hasn't changed. Like, when I started the podcast, I had really short brown hair. First off, like, if we're just talking physically, I had really short brown hair and I literally hated it. I will definitely post some throwback pictures on my Instagram for you guys to see because I think it's funny, and just so much has changed since then. And even like the branding and stuff too, like I got really, really handy on Canva. I've gone through so many different like cover art pictures, series ideas and segments, and I know I'm kind of rambling now, but I'm just really, really glad that you guys have stuck it out with me and you've just ridden along this crazy ride of life with me. And obviously I'm not going anywhere. It's only going to go up from here. So I figured that I would kind of share some of my, I guess, more like long-term goals with you guys, so you kind of get a sense of where I see the podcast going in the next couple months, years, and then some. So obviously I already talked about this one, but I definitely want to hit 1 million downloads before the year ends. Just feeling in my gut that it's gonna happen. So let's do it. Let's get there. I also want to do like live meetups or a live podcast show situation. I have no clue how one goes about doing that, but just like everything, you kind of figure it out as you throw it together. So that's something that I really want to do. I think it'd be fun if I just got to meet up with a bunch of you guys and like go get drinks or something. So if you live near Annapolis, definitely join our Geneva group chat because there's a locals only group. There's only a handful of girls in there, but if you guys live in Annapolis or Baltimore, DC, Northern Virginia, I guess, definitely join the Geneva group, and I would love to just connect with more local gals, and maybe we could all like meet up at Chop Tank or something and get a beverage because I feel like that would just be super fun. And I feel like everyone could just use more friends, especially like a supportive group of women. So if you guys would be down for that, let me know. Join the group chat in Geneva. It's linked in the show notes. And we can all kind of connect on there. And if you're not local, you should totally join the group chat too, because something that has been a goal of mine for this year, and I feel like it's really started to kind of manifest itself, it's just creating more of a community of 80/20 listeners, and the group chat's such a fun, cool place to do that. So if you're not already in the group chat, you totally should join. Another goal of mine is to do merch, but this time do it the way that I want to do it. And I did a merch line last year, kind of around this time. But to be totally transparent with you guys, the sweatshirts did not come out the way that I wanted them to in the slightest. And it was just one of those things where like I kind of felt like I didn't have a choice. I just like had to go with it. Everything about it was so not fun for me that I would never, ever, ever want to do it again. Unless someone just did it for me. Like if I could just pick some samples and say, okay, I kind of want it to look like this, and someone else does it for me, that would be fantastic. So if anyone has like a clothing company and like wants to collab and do like a 80/20 merch collection, let's do it. Like I literally would just slap my logo on there. Like I don't even care about being paid for it. I just like would love to have 80/20 merch, but like not have to worry about it. That's a goal of mine. Not before the year ends, but definitely like 2023, 2024. I have a couple more goals up my sleeve as well that I'm not quite ready to share yet, but I am just totally looking forward to the future of this podcast, and I have you guys to thank for that. So thank you so much. While we're on the topic of the future, this is something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and that is something I like to call future tripping. Okay, I think I talked about this not too long ago, where it's okay to have goals and okay to have intentions and wants and desires for the future, but it's not okay to be so fixated on what might happen and what could be and what could go wrong that you lose sight of what's going on in the present moment. So recently I stumbled across this term called future tripping. It's where you're so worried and so hyper-focused on what might happen that you can't enjoy the present moment. I personally feel like I'm stuck in this weird limbo between setting goals and hoping that they work out and being so fixated on what I want to happen that I miss what's right in front of me. There's a quote that I love, and it says, "Remember what you wanted, what you currently have." And I think about this a lot when I get fixated on what could be in the future. If you guys have listened to the show in any capacity, you know that I'm a big overthinker, and it's something that I work on every single day, and I'm actively doing things, and I giggle because it's actually a problem. I'm actively doing things every single day to try to calm my mind down and bring myself back to this present moment right here, right now. There are a couple ways that I kind of like bring myself back down to earth when I just get all up in the clouds in my overthinking and kind of future tripping. One of them is yoga. Ever since I started going back, I've definitely been able to get a grip on my thoughts a lot better, and journaling is super helpful as well. Anytime that I feel like my thoughts are racing, my brain is just really taking over a situation, I will just grab my pen and paper and just write stuff down. I honestly do this at work a lot. Your brain is constantly firing off things, right? And I feel like some people can just manage it better than others. And to some degree, it's kind of like teaching yourself how to manage these thoughts that come in. I almost think of them as like little notifications. I hate to like compare my brain to a cell phone, but you get like these little pings, these little ideas, thoughts, notifications. So whether it's something along the lines of, oh, I have to remember to stop by the post office to ship that package, I have to go to the grocery store to pick up some more tomatoes, or maybe sometimes it's a little more extreme, like, okay, you know, my lease is up in a few months and for some reason my brain is convincing me that my landlord isn't going to let me renew. So all of a sudden I'm on Zillow and I'm trying to find a house that I can live in the spring when it's literally October. So finding ways to manage these notifications that you get from yourself is super, super important. That was a bit of a tangent, but something that I do to prevent future tripping is just write down these notifications as they come in, whether it's like on a sticky note or in the notes app on my phone. Just jot down these thoughts and essentially like check them off and then let them go and continue to go about your day. And you've written the thought down so you won't forget about it. But right now you can focus fully on the present moment, the things in front of you, the people that you're with, the task that you're doing, the project you're working on, the conversation that you're having, whatever it is, you can fully focus and be present. So obviously based on recent topics on the podcast, you guys can probably tell that, I don't want to say questioning, but just kind of wondering about the future has been on my mind lately. And in my meditation book that I read every day, it's called Journey to the Heart, October 2nd, there was a passage that really stuck out to me, and I thought that I would read it to you guys. Remember all those years when you were fearful, trying to peek ahead, see what the future holds. Remember how upset you got, how uncertain and abandoned you felt because you didn't know the plan. Life has now taken you to a new place for you, but a place that is ancient. All along, you were not supposed to be getting the answers about what the future held. You were supposed to be learning the magical way of trust and inner guidance, learning to feel your way through, trusting and committing to your vision, your energy, your purpose, your place, each day and moment along the way. You were supposed to be learning to allow the universe to magically unfold and trust that it would. You've been learning this lesson. You've been learning it well. Not knowing has taught you to know more than you could have ever imagined. That passage actually came at a really, really convenient time, and it was one of those moments where you read something and you're like, oh, yep, got it. Thanks God, message received. because actually the day before, I literally, guys, you can't make this shit up. The day before, I had written in my journal, I'm not joking when I read this, I'm trying to be patient and wait my turn, but it's hard. I'm getting antsy and I wish I had a crystal ball to see what my future looks like. I'm asking for a sign, anything, maybe just a wave or a feeling that I'm moving in the right direction. So that was the night before, and then literally the next day I read that passage. So I'm like, okay, thank you God, message received, loud and clear, heard, understood. That kind of just like put me in my place and reminded me that it's good, it's taken care of. Everything always works out the way that it's supposed to. You're exactly where you need to be. And lately, every single time I've become worried or overwhelmed about what might happen, something like that, a message, a reminder, a sign is presented that just says, it's good, it's taken care of. So the day that you guys are listening to this, October 6th, 2 years ago to the day, I posted my first ever podcast episode, and now I'm posting, I think, my 95th podcast episode. So that's pretty darn insane. So something that I want to talk about really quick is, and this happens to me all the time, is these weird like alignment life parallel things. This happens a lot to me in airports. All of a sudden, I'll be in an airport and I'll look back on Snapchat stories, and for some reason, a year ago, I was in that airport. This has happened to me probably like 5 or 6 times in my life. And I don't know why that keeps happening. There's no like annual trip that I go on that would make this line up, but it always happens to me in Philly. And I go to the La Colombe in Philly, and then I'm like checking my Snapchat memories, and I'm like, oh shit, like a year ago today, I was in Philly and I was drinking La Colombe. And it's just so weird how like a year ago I was doing the same thing. How did that line up? How did that line up perfectly? I have no idea. How did October 6th, 2020 line up perfectly with an October 6th, conveniently a Thursday in 2022? Couldn't have planned that better myself, but it happened. I'm going to bring this full circle now and show you guys, prove to you that everything always works out. The day I'm recording this is October 2nd. A year ago today, I was living at home with my parents in Ocean City. My sister, Lexi, and my good friend Allie and I came up to Annapolis for a football game, and we just had the best time. Girls' weekend, it was so fun. This was like the first time that we ever went out downtown. We like hit all the fun bars that we had like never been to before. Needless to say, we had such a great time, so much so that the next morning when we got up to go get coffee and stuff, we were like, we should all move here. How fun would it be if we got a house and we got jobs up here and we moved here? And sure as shit, a year later, something that started as a joke actually manifested itself. And this is also crazy. We took these really funny drunk selfies in Acme. I'll just say it. They're hilarious. It's the bathroom behind us is disgusting. We look so funny. Kind of rounding out the story here. Back to when I said that I tend to put myself in places that I was a year ago unintentionally. I don't go to Acme very often, okay guys? And I probably haven't been in like 6 months. But I went the other day and I took almost the same selfie that Lexi and Allie and I took. And it just so happened that it was October 2nd. Sure as shit, October 2nd. The days aligned exactly parallel to each other, but that was so not intentional. I just was there with some friends and I went to the bathroom and I was like, let me snap some selfies. This is funny. I'm not exactly sure what these life parallels mean, but I just kind of take it as a sign that I'm in the right place. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, and it's just alignment, I guess. I don't know. If someone knows something about this, if someone knows more about this than I do, give me a call, because it keeps happening to me. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, I did want to spend some time talking about podcasting. So this is kind of going to be like a, I guess, like weird, there's 2 pieces of this episode kind of episode. I get questions so often that ask how to start a podcast. And I also get other people asking me if they should start a podcast, but they're not sure because they're worried that the podcast space is too oversaturated, it's already too late to start, this, that, and the other thing. So I thought that I would talk about both of those things in this part of the episode. First off, I would have to say that the podcast space is not quite yet oversaturated, okay? I think it's got a couple more years until it becomes oversaturated, but it's kind of still in its early days to some degree. It's pretty normal for everyone to have an Instagram. It's pretty normal for everyone to have a TikTok, but not everyone has a podcast. And even in the creator space, not everyone has a podcast. The cool thing about podcasting is that you don't have to have a platform necessarily. I mean, it helps obviously to have people who already follow you and listen to what you say. Then they kind of transfer over to podcast listeners. But I found that most of the people who used to watch me on YouTube or follow me on Instagram don't necessarily listen to the podcast. But people who find me through the podcast will go follow me on other platforms because we kind of just have a different type of bond than you do when you're scrolling someone else's content. It's just a really cool way to connect with creators. And then also, like, if you own a business and you start a podcast, that's great for your business. And the cool thing is that it's just audio. So like, I'm literally sitting in men's extra large Hanes sweatpants and a giant t-shirt in my bedroom. I haven't washed my hair in honestly a couple days, and I'm just talking in my bedroom, and it's like 10 p.m. and I don't have to worry about putting on like a full face of makeup, doing my hair all nice. Obviously it's nice to look nice, don't get me wrong, but like, I can just record the podcast on the fly and enjoy doing it and not have to worry about how I look. So it's kind of like the pressure's off, and it's almost like you're on the phone with a friend. I think everyone should have a podcast. If you like talking, if you feel like you have something to say, there's somebody out there that will listen. So it's not too late to start a podcast. Then you get the question of, well, then how can I start a podcast? I know that I want to. How do I do it? I'll give you guys a couple inside secrets and I'll tell you what I do, but a couple little disclaimers before I do. First off, the best way to learn how to do something is to do it yourself. So I could sit here all day long and tell you which mic to get and what editing software to use and even down to like what to say, but it's a lot easier to order the microphone on Amazon than it is to actually use the microphone. Kind of similar to how it's easy to have a gym membership, but it's a lot harder to go to the gym. Same thing with podcasting. I read a statistic the other day that says only like 5% of podcasts will ever make it past like the first 6 months and like 5,000 downloads or something like that. So it's like wild to me that 80/20 is in the top 5% of podcasts. That's like mind-blowing to me. But it's true. A lot of people don't want to wait to grow. They just want that like instant satisfaction. They don't want to wait for an audience to be built. They don't want to wait to build connection. They don't want to wait to kind of gain like a slow following. They just want followers right away. So if you're not interested in doing it for the long haul, I wouldn't recommend it, to be completely honest with you guys. Growing up, my parents have always been very entrepreneurial, and they've always said your third year of business is when you finally start to see payoff. And that's kind of how I feel going into this third year of 80/20. Like, we're turning 2 today. We're going into the third year. I just have such a good feeling because I know like we're gaining that traction. It just feels so good and so right, and I'm so excited for it. But if you're not interested in like waiting it out and grinding it out, it might not be for you. Conveniently for you guys, I have a section on my Amazon shop page with all my podcast equipment. It's literally just called Podcast. So you guys can click the link in the show notes, go check out all the equipment that I use. I will say I am looking to upgrade my microphone system, but I'm kind of just waiting it out until it feels like really right, you know? Nothing's wrong with my current setup. I don't need to upgrade. I just think that it'd be fun to. I use the Yeti Blue microphone. I have a pop filter that I hold in front of my microphone. I don't like clip it to anything. It came with a clip, but it broke off. So I just hold it. I connect my microphone to my computer and I use Final Cut Pro to edit. You could use GarageBand, you could use iMovie, you could even like record on voice memos. Some podcast episodes, guys, I've just recorded on voice memos. Nobody ever noticed. No joke. Nobody noticed. Nobody batted an eye. So if you're just looking to start out, literally just record on voice memos and edit on iMovie on your computer. I definitely wouldn't recommend investing like $200 in a microphone if you're not sure if you're going to use it. Just kind of give it a go on voice memos, see what happens. I use Anchor as my podcast hosting platform. It's super nice because it's free. It's really user-friendly. I think you can actually record and edit in the Anchor app, which is cool. If you ever want to record with a guest, I would just recommend Zoom. I've done that before. It's super easy, but nothing compares to like truly being in the room with someone when you're recording. So I always prefer to record with people that I'm close to and people that I can be with in person. That's just personal preference though. And last but not least, a question that I got a lot was, how do you come up with ideas for your podcast? And most of the time it's just based off of things that are going on in my own life so I can speak authentically to them, and then questions that you guys have. So I'm always listening to what you guys have to say, taking your feedback into consideration, and using that as inspiration to kind of fuel the content of the podcast. However, if you're just starting out and you don't necessarily have an audience to take feedback from, talk about topics that you enjoy. Talk about things that you would want to hear about. If there are certain things that you wish other podcasters would talk about, but maybe they haven't touched on it, or they don't have a good take on it, or you don't like what they have to say, or you think that you could say something better, record a podcast on that. Like, why not? I think podcasting is so cool because you get to hear people's thoughts and opinions, and that's kind of what makes the world go round. I guess we can kind of go deep for a second, but our voices are all so important. We all have one. Everybody loves to talk. Everybody loves to be heard. As a person, I think podcasting has helped me become better at conversation with other people. I think it's helped me to articulate my thoughts a lot better. It's helped me with public speaking, no doubt about it. And it's helped me to find things that I'm passionate about. It's helped me to reflect on my own life on a weekly basis. And it's helped to connect me with some really, really cool people that I probably wouldn't be who I am today without. So, and I'm just so excited to see where year 3 takes us. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of 80/20. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to share it with a friend, leave a rate and a review, and post on Instagram. You can tag me at Lily Rayco and the podcast Instagram at 80/20. Seriously, thank you guys so much for 2 amazing years of this podcast, and I can't wait for many more. Love you guys lots, and I will chat with you next week.